Bum, bum, bum. Hey, is anybody around? If you're around and you have another screen, you should call up President Trump's latest tweet about the Russian ads. Oh my God. I'm trying to get my jaw back up off the floor. Yeah, I'll read it for you in a moment. So I'll read you the president's tweet first and then what he is retweeting. So, everybody come on in here. So, President Trump tweets this, and this was just recently. He says, "The fake news media never fails. Hard to ignore this fact from," and it's important who this is from. This is from the Vice President of Facebook Ads, Rob Goldman. All right, so President Trump just retweeted a tweet which is part of a chain of tweets by the Vice President of Facebook Ads. His name is Rob Goldman. Now let me read you Rob Goldman's tweet. And I'm going to give you three of them, and there's some more, but I'll just read three of them. All right? So Rob Goldman, Vice President of Facebook Ads, tweeted, "Very excited to see the Mueller indictment today. We shared Russian ads with Congress, Mueller, and the American people to help the public understand how the Russians abused our system. Still," it's getting interesting now, "still," says Rob Goldman, Vice President of Facebook Ads, "still, there are key facts about the Russian actions that are still not well understood." And I thought to myself, I thought I did understand. But what will Rob Goldman, Vice President of Facebook Ads, tell us is something about the Russian ads that I didn't already know? I'm pretty well informed. I follow the news. But there is something that I didn't know. And Rob Goldman, Vice President of Facebook Ads, is going to tell us in this next tweet. He says, "Most of the coverage of Russian meddling involves their attempt to affect the outcome of the 2016 U.S. election." True, we knew that. And then he says, "I have seen all of the Russian ads." He's seen all of the Russian ads because he is the Vice President of Facebook Ads. He says, "I have seen all of the Russian ads, and I can say very definitively that swaying the election was not, in capitals, not the main goal." He says, next tweet, he goes, "The majority of Russian ad spend happened after the election." What? He goes, "The majority of the Russian ad spend happened after the election. We shared that fact, but very few outlets, meaning news outlets, have covered it because it doesn't align with the main media narrative of Trump and the election." I don't even know if this is real. I hope Rod Goldman is a real person and that's really his job at Facebook. Because the first thing I thought was, the president fell for a hoax, and I'm falling for it too. As far as we know, is he real? Is Rob Goldman a real person? It wouldn't be that unusual if the president retweeted somebody who turned out to be an imposter. I mean, that's sort of every day on Twitter. Oh my God. First of all, I'm amazed that Facebook or, somebody that high up in Facebook would just come right out and say, the news coverage is completely false. Here's why. And you're trying to make it fit the anti-Trump narrative. From Facebook. Oh my God. And is there anybody here who knew that fact? How many of you knew that the majority of the Russian ads came after the election? How many of you knew that? I watch a lot of news. I didn't know that. And weirdly, I don't think I've even seen it on the conservative media. So there may be more to this story. So count me still a little bit skeptical. If 5 minutes from now I have to pull down this Periscope because I got something completely wrong, don't be surprised by that. Because, I always caution you that when something seems too, amazing to be true, it probably is. This feels too amazing to be true. So I'm not sure I can completely believe it yet. But the fact that the president tweeted it makes it hard for the major outlets, as Facebook vice president of ads calls them, makes it harder for them to ignore it. So a few people have retweeted this since yesterday. Somebody says they knew that and it was very commonly known. Oh, some of you did know it. But you don't see it being generally discussed that way. So I don't think the issue is necessarily that no one ever covered it. I think the issue is that it got covered and then people act like it wasn't the case. Because that so completely changes what you think of what the Russians were doing. I suppose you could still argue, that they wanted Trump to get elected because they thought that would be the worst thing for the country. Maybe, so maybe it was all just part of their, sowing problems. So people saying that they've known this for a while, etc. If it's common knowledge, I would be pretty surprised. Because it's possible I've even mentioned it before. Somebody said I'd mentioned it before. Because it feels like the news covered this and then acts like it isn't the case. Because you would think that every time this topic came up, people would say that most of these ads came after the election and therefore, it couldn't have been the main goal. Yeah, he's not verified. So it made me wonder. Yeah, so none of this rules out the possibility that Russia did want, was trying to help Trump before the election. But if you see it in terms of, it's a completely different story if you just see it in terms of, well, they're colluding, versus, no, the moment he was elected, they turned on him. Because if they turned on him the moment he was elected, there probably wasn't any colluding going on. By then he would not have even had time, to stab them in the back or anything. So they would have no reason to stop supporting him if they had colluded in the first place. So why this is important is that most of the Facebook troll activity came after the election. That doesn't look like collusion. That looks like somebody just trying to screw with everybody over here any way they could. So let's see what's okay. Somebody said show us CNN. So let's see if CNN has this as their top story. Nope, something about gun control, Jimmy Kimmel, why does Melania stay? Looks like complete silence on CNN. All right, let's see if Fox is covering it. Maybe, am I making more of a thing of this than it should be? To me, it seems like the biggest news I've heard in a long time, but maybe I'm wrong. All right. But Fox also is covering the shooter. And I don't see anything about it. So, interesting. Let's go to politics on Fox News, see if that's there. It's not on there either. Interesting. All right. So I'm going to have to, I'm now going to have to add skepticism to everything that you've seen so far, because there's something that's not quite adding up. There's no way that the president just tweeted that and it's being ignored, and it's being ignored on both of the major new media sites. You'd think at least one of them would be covering that, right? Russians use time zones, yeah. That's how we know it's Russians, because they've mastered the whole time zone thing. All right. Well, that's all I had to say today. I got to do some other stuff. I would rather talk to you guys all day, but, you know, sometimes got to do other